She pointed straight at my wife and screamed, "She's armed! Arrest her before she hurts someone!" Neighbors froze, kids pulled inside, and the cops rushed out of their cruiser with hands on their holsters. My wife stood calm in the middle of the driveway, her jacket barely open, the grip of her sidearm visible. Karen smirked like she had already won, shouting, "She's breaking HOA rules! You can't walk around here with that!" But my wife didn't flinch. She slowly reached into her back pocket, pulled out a leather wallet, and flipped it open. The badge caught the sun shining right into the officer's eyes. Silence cut through the street. One cop straightened instantly, his hand snapping to his forehead in salute. The other followed a second later. Karen's jaw dropped, her voice cracking into a whisper. "What is that?" My wife's eyes locked on hers as she said, clear and steady.
Karen's face twisted, but she refused to back down. "She's lying! That badge is fake! She just bought it online!" she shouted, her voice shaking as neighbors peeked from their porches. The officers didn't even glance at Karen. They were already standing straighter, their tone shifting with respect. One of them asked my wife quietly, "Marshall, do you need assistance here?" Karen's mouth fell open. "Wait, what? You're just going to believe her? I'm the HOA president. I make the rules around here." She stomped her heel into the concrete like a child, but my wife just lifted her jacket the rest of the way, revealing her duty belt, radio, and federal ID clipped to the holster. The street went dead silent. Karen blinked fast, realizing her story was crumbling. She tried one last trick, jabbing her finger toward me. "He told her to bring that gun. They're dangerous together." But before the officers could respond, my wife pulled out her phone and tapped play on a video she had recorded the week before. Karen herself, pounding on our door at midnight, screaming threats about getting us thrown out. The color drained from Karen's face as the sound echoed across the cul-de-sac.
Karen lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone out of my wife's hand, but the taller officer stepped in, blocking her. "Ma'am, you need to calm down." She shoved at him wild-eyed. "No, she's the problem, not me. This whole family is dangerous. Look, she's literally carrying a gun." My wife didn't even blink. She pulled the slide back just enough to show it was chambered, then reholstered with calm precision. "Carrying a gun is my job," she said evenly, "and so is arresting people who lie to law enforcement." The officer who had saluted earlier leaned toward Karen. "You just admitted you filed a false report on a U.S. Marshal." The crowd of neighbors had their phones up now, some whispering, others grinning. One man muttered loud enough for the block to hear, "She messed with the wrong lady this time." Karen spun in circles, pointing at everyone like she could scare them into silence, but every camera was rolling. My wife folded her arms, her badge gleaming under the sun, and asked the cops in a voice sharp enough to cut glass, "Would you like me to do it, or will you?" The older officer nodded once. "We've got it, Marshal." He reached for Karen's wrists, but she twisted away, screaming at the top of her lungs, "I am the law here!" Karen's scream echoed down the block, but it only made the scene worse for her. The officers closed in as she staggered backward, tripping over the curb. One of them barked, "Ma'am, stop resisting." She flailed her arms, scratching at the younger cop's vest, shrieking, "You're all corrupt! She planted that badge! She's nobody!" But the neighbors weren't having it anymore. A woman across the street yelled, "We've lived here for 5 years. She's been harassing everyone." Another shouted, "Check the HOA fund. She's been stealing from us." Phones caught every second, and suddenly Karen wasn't the accuser anymore. She was exposed. My wife pulled her radio from her belt, pressed the button, and said, "Marshal requesting verification. Badge ID 427, code confirm." A crisp voice crackled back almost instantly. "Confirmed, active federal marshal." The officers froze for just a beat, then snapped their attention back to Karen, who had gone pale as chalk. She shook her head, whispering, No, this isn't how it's supposed to go." My wife leaned down, her voice steady but cold. 42 seconds ago, you thought I was a criminal. Now you're about to learn what real authority looks like."
The cuffs clicked shut around Karen's wrists, and the crowd erupted with whispers, some neighbors even clapping quietly. She twisted against the steel, her voice breaking. "You can't do this to me! I'm the president of this HOA!" My wife tilted her head slightly, calm as ever. "No, you're just a woman with a clipboard and a loud mouth." The younger officer read her rights while she kicked at the ground, but every word was drowned out by the sound of cameras recording, shutters clicking, neighbors finally seeing justice play out. Karen spat toward me, her hair wild. "This isn't over! I'll sue you! I'll sue everyone!" The older cop tightened his grip on her arm, muttering, "You'll be lucky if fraud and false reporting are the only charges you face." My wife closed her phone, slipped it back into her jacket, and finally looked at me. Her eyes softened just for a second. "All this," she said under her breath, "over a gun on my hip." I smiled faintly, watching the patrol car door slam shut on Karen. "No," I answered, "over power she never really had." The cruiser pulled away, Karen's shouts fading into the distance, while the whole street stood in stunned silence. My wife adjusted her badge, then turned back toward the neighbors. "You all deserve better than someone who abuses authority," she said, her voice strong. And just like that, every officer, every neighbor, every child watching saw her not just as a woman with a gun, but as the law itself.